In mid-2019, I published a video overview of 10 Days in the USA, a 2003 game from Alan R. Moon and Aaron Weisblum and Out of the Box, which went out of business in 2015, thus causing the game to disappear from shelves after that. Which is a shame because it's a classic family game, but it was picked up for a new edition by Hong Kong publisher Broadway Toys in 2019 with the same gameplay and new art and graphic design by Jackie Davis. Now, 10 Days in the USA is one title in a series of games that all feature similar gameplay with some twists to them. The series began in 2002 with Europa Tour, published by Schmidt, and that title was picked up by Out of the Box and rebranded as 10 Days in Europe to fit into the line with 10 Days in Africa and 10 Days in Asia and 10 Days in the Americas. Again, all the same gameplay, but with some twist in how they work. Well, Broadway Toys did not just pick up 10 Days in the USA, they also picked up 10 Days in Europe, and they have a new edition of that, again with art by Jackie Davis. The game is a simple Racco-style game for people who have some familiarity with Racco from decades past, where you are trying to make a tour, specifically a 10-day tour of a particular location where you must start in a country and you end in a country, and everything must be connected along the way. You have a lot of freedom in what you're doing to make that connection work, that 10-day tour work. So it's not like Racco where you just have to get numbers in increasing order. No, you have much more freedom in how you are going to assemble that tour. But of course, other people are trying to do the same thing and they might be collecting what you want. So you have to be flexible when you're making that tour. Here are the components in 10 Days in Europe. The game board depicts most of the regions, with these regions being one of 5 colors, and no region being adjacent to another region of the same color. You have 3 bodies of water that are highlighted: the Baltic Sea, the Atlantic Ocean, and the Mediterranean Sea. You have a card in the deck for each country, with some countries appearing twice: Spain, France, Germany, Denmark, Sweden, and Russia. They have a little asterisk to remind you, and they appear twice in the deck because they are each adjacent to 2 of these 3 bodies of water, and they help provide connections as you are building your tour on your personal game rack. So each country appears once or twice, the bodies of water appear a few times, and in addition to that, there are airplanes that appear twice in each of the 5 colors. To set up for the game, you shuffle all the cards, you draw a card, you place it somewhere in your rack. You draw another card, place that somewhere in your rack, which I will hopefully move on camera so that you have some idea of what I'm doing. You draw another card, hey, a yellow country next to a yellow plane. You need to use the planes to connect countries that are of the same color. You have Cyprus, which is down here, just all by itself. It can only be reached by flying to it from a pink plane or using a boat that goes on the Mediterranean. Oh, there's a pink plane. It'd be great to put it next to Cyprus, but this space is occupied, and if I put it here, these do not make a connection. But we can just put this plane here for now. So you continue until you have a full rack, and then the game itself actually begins. Your goal in 10 Days in Europe is to have each card in your rack connected to the card or cards that are adjacent to it. So if you have 2 countries that are next to one another and they are adjacent in real life, that counts as a connection. If you have a plane and it's surrounded by cards that are in those 2 colors, you have a connection, because you get from a yellow country onto a yellow plane and you land in another yellow country. It's a very odd travel system, but apparently Europe's going in all sorts of interesting directions these days. You have a body of water, the Atlantic, and it must have a country on each side that touches the Atlantic Ocean. You must begin and end with a country. You cannot start your trip on a plane because you do not live on a plane. You can't start on the water. Maybe you do live on the water. I don't know. Maybe you do. But in the game terms, start in a country, end in a country, everything else gets connected. Here's an example of a completed tour, one of thousands that you can make with the cards in the game. In this case, we start in Denmark. We go to Sweden because they are adjacent to one another. You get on a boat in the Atlantic. You go to the Netherlands, which is a green country. You take a green plane. You go to Latvia. You walk across to Estonia. You get on the Baltic and go to Russia. Yes, Estonia is next to Russia, but you don't have to walk there directly. You can take a tour on the Baltic on the 8th day, go to Russia, and you end up in Ukraine. There you go. that works. Country at the beginning, country at the end. Everything is connected along the way, either by adjacency, by a plane, or by water. Gameplay in 10 Days in Europe might seem random because you start with 10 random cards, just drawn and placed in a rack. You have no control over that, except of course you do have some control over where those cards end up. So even as you're placing cards in the rack at the beginning of the game, you can make some connections and then build on that as the game continues. The more that you can do that, the better your chances of winning. Which, okay, luck has a factor in whether that will happen or not, but you can often make your own luck if you know what to look for. Here's how my starting rack ended up, starting with day 1 on the left and carrying over through day 10. I'm trying to stagger this so you can both see the board and see the cards on the rack. We have a yellow plane that connects to Spain that goes to Portugal, but then goes to Cyprus. So that doesn't work, but these 3 are connected. You have Cyprus to Turkey, nope, Montenegro, Bulgaria, pink plane, and, yes, Norway. There's not much connecting along here, but when you start looking at things, you see Portugal and Turkey. These 2 can be connected by the Mediterranean Sea. So if we drew a Mediterranean Sea, then we'd have yellow plane, Spain, Portugal, Sea, Turkey. That's close. Turkey and Bulgaria have a spot in between them, and that could be filled with either Romania or Ukraine. Slim odds given the number of cards in the game, but it's something. And you have to look for the possibilities of what you can find there. Maybe you can make your own luck depending on how things work out. So how you play is after everyone has completed their racks, you turn over 3 of these cards and you make 3 discard piles. So, Macedonia, France, Italy. Macedonia is down here next to Bulgaria. On a turn, you are either going to draw a mystery face down card or you draw the top of one of the discard piles. So if I were the first player, I could pick up Macedonia, replace Bulgaria with Macedonia, and then I have to throw Bulgaria away into the discard pile, so there's always 3 discard piles available. If no one covers up Bulgaria with a discard before my turn comes back around, I can pick up Bulgaria and then drop it in here, and now I have a connection between Turkey, Bulgaria, and Macedonia. Okay, so all I need now is the Mediterranean Sea to make a connection from the yellow plane all the way to Macedonia. I need to draw any yellow card. Whoop! If no one covers this, now I've got this. Still need the Mediterranean, and maybe a green plane, or maybe I just do something else. Sometimes you throw things away, sometimes you set something up so that if by chance you draw a green plane, nope, Poland. I can't see how that works at all. But I can keep Bulgaria here, and I can keep the pink plane here, because if I draw Kosovo, Kosovo could go here, and then I have a pink, and I just need any other pink after that. You make your own luck. The game continues with people drawing cards, replacing things on their rack, or of course if you draw something you don't like it, you can just throw it away. Whoop, Mediterranean. All right. There we go. With just a few changes, I'm now 1 card away from winning. Should I get a green plane or Kosovo and another pink? Almost there. And there's an overview of 10 Days in Europe, which I've played more than 50 times, more than 40 of those games coming on this new edition from Broadway Toys. I haven't played so many times because this edition is prettier than the out-of-the-box edition, although it is, because the out-of-the-box game board looks very much like something you'd have hanging up in your classroom. The design is great. It is a fantastic experience, something perfect for family gamers as well as serious gamers. But the old edition did not have an attractive look to it. It looked like an educational game, and everyone knows those are boring and no one ever wants to play them. It's just what you learn as a kid when educational games are presented to you. 10 Days in Europe has an educational element, as do other titles in the 10 Day series. But beyond that, it's just a good game because it provides a good challenge. I've played this so many times, all 2 players, in the past month since I've received this sample copy from Broadway Toys, with my exchange student Lisa, who is from Thailand. So hopefully Broadway Toys will be having 10 Days in Asia come out soon as well. Need a new edition of that. We've played all 2-player games, and I have won approximately 4/5 of them. I mean, partly I've just played way more games than her, and partly I've played more 10 Days titles than her. I can often see the connections as I'm setting up the cards initially, and you start learning that as well as soon as you start building your own racks. If you pick up something at random and it's a ship or it's a plane, you can drop it in that 2nd or 9th slot because you know you need a country on the end, and you can put any country on the end that satisfies that ship or plane, and it'll work. Or if you get Germany at the beginning, oh, let's put that in slot 3 or 8, because of course it works either way. Because if it's in slot 3, it's this midpoint with lots of things connecting to it, and there's very good odds that you can get things that will connect on either side. Or if I draw something next that works with Germany, like Czech Republic or the Atlantic or an Orange Plain, I put that in slot 4, and I can worry about slots 1 and 2 later. Surely later on I can pick up 2 things that will fit in those slots if I don't draw something to build on from, during the actual setup phase. So you make your own luck as you play the game. The game does change as you add more players to the game because, of course, there are more cards out of play because each person will have 10 cards on their rack, and you will have fewer opportunities to grab things from the discard pile. You can't as often drop things and then pick them up on your next turn because you just have to hope that one player who comes between your turns doesn't cover it. Although often you can cause destruction with what someone does by picking up something you think they want and discarding on the thing that they just laid down. So you have messed with 2 of the discard piles between their turn, and hopefully you've wrecked any chance they have of floating something around and getting it back. So you pick up on the rhythms of gameplay and what people might be looking for, and you watch someone pick up Poland, and then they discard, on the next turn they discard Germany, and you're like, well, clearly they hope to get Germany back because, they're next to one another. Maybe I'm just discarding it and putting it back. You start paying attention to where people put stuff in their rack, and you can almost see people trying to float things around. Or at least I can, just because I'm paying attention and watching for this and trying to improve all my odds, bend the randomness to my service. That's what I love about this style of game, where it has a high random element, but you can make your own luck and you can play better than chance. You have to start looking at your rack and seeing possible connections that you can make and then playing the odds. And at a certain point you have to give up on the odds and just go in a different direction. But sometimes you can set up 2 pairs of cards that overlap, and all I need is something here or something here, and then I'll have 4 cards that work. And you can slowly make changes as you're doing that and improve the odds of you getting something. There's 4 Atlantic cards. There's 3 Mediterranean. There's 2 Baltic. There's 2 of certain countries. What have you seen pass through and get buried? You can sometimes pick up the top card from a discard pile, swap something, or pretend to swap something, and then discard onto another pile so that you've just uncovered a card that's what you really want. And hopefully no one covers it before your turn comes around again. You can do that, and sometimes you will discover something, but then sometimes you're just like, I really need Italy, and Italy was buried, and I just have to give it up and do something else. I wanted that blue country to match the plain and the Mediterranean. Now I just have to tear things apart and start elsewhere. Games last anywhere from 2 minutes to 20, depending on how well things get set up for you. We've typically play 4 or 5 games in a session just because it's very quick. Put things here. You won. Okay. Shuffle up. Play again. It's a fantastic experience. I hope it gets distributed in the U.S. market. You can order from Broadway Toys, or perhaps there'll be some distribution in North America from a partner of theirs. Same with 10 Days in the USA, which we bought some to sell through the BGG store because I thought people would be like, hey, look at this classic game back on the market again. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend you do. It's a design that feels like we don't have as many of this type of game. This I don't want to say Days of Wonder style, but it is that Days of Wonder feel where it hits the family and gamer market perfectly. It works well for kids, 7, 8 years old. I played it at school with kids in my son's class. It works really well. But then as you play with adults and as you play with people who have more gaming experience, you start to see a difference in how people play, and that's where you get that forfeits win ratio. So I'm happy, though, that Lisa still wants to play because I love playing this game. I love playing all the ones in the series, and ideally we'll see more from Broadway Toys in the future. Give it a try if you haven't already. 10 days in wherever.